Good morning. I'm calling the House Taxes Committee to order for April 19th, 2023. First item on the agenda is approving the minutes for April 18th, 2023. Vice Chair Norris, do you have a motion?
Chair Gomez, I move the minutes from the April 18th meeting of the Tax Committee.
Vice Chair Norris has moved the minutes for April 18th. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. The minutes for April 18th, 2023 are adopted. So today we're going to do markup and passage of the House tax bill. So do I move it from up there? Okay, so I'm going to hand the gavel over to Vice Chair Norris.
We can't have more. We're just gonna wait until
All right, Chair Gomez, would you like to move your bill?
Yes, please, Chair Norris, I'd like to move that House File 1938 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee.
So moved. Chair Gomez moves the amendment coded A23-0111. Any discussion on the DE?
Oh, well,
All those?
I have to make another
First,
one.
we're gonna move. Yep, sorry about that. All right.
Okay.
So Chair Gomez moves that House File 1938 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Next, we're gonna add the DE amendment. Chair Gomez, would you like to move the amendment coded A23-0111?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any discussion on that, the DE amendment? All right. All those in favor of the DE amendment, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. In the ear of the chair, the ayes have it. The DE is adopted. Next, we'll move to the author's amendment coded A13. Chair Gomez moves the amendment coded A13. Would you like to move the amendment, Chair Gomez?
Yes, please, Mr. Chair.
The amendment is so moved. Can nonpartisan staff please walk us through the amendment?
Chair Norris and members, I'm working off a document that's labeled memorandum that was distributed just recently. It's just a summary of the author's amendment that is in front of the committee. So I'm going to walk through the first half, and my colleague, Ms. Hagler, is going to walk through the second half. So on page 1.3 of the amendment, there's language fixing a broken cross-reference in the Social Security subtraction. On pages 1.4 to 1, or page 1, lines 4 to 8, there's a technical correction that relates to the international tax language that was adopted in 2019. This doesn't have a real substantive effect, but it's related to the worldwide taxation language that's in the bill. On lines 1.9 to 1.11, there's a clarifying change to the sexual harassment and abuse settlement subtraction, and that just mirrors language that's in the Federal Internal Revenue Code. On lines 1.12 to 1.18, there's an amendment to the public pension subtraction. And this just clarifies that the State Patrol and Legislators Plan don't have basic members, but all of those members would be eligible for the subtraction because none of them receive Social Security. 1.19 to 1.20 of the amendment clarifies that the public pension subtraction, there's a provision in there that gives sort of the same subtraction to pension plans from other states if they offer a similar subtraction for Minnesota, and this adds the District of Columbia to that sort of reciprocity language. On pages lines 1.21 to 2.7 of the amendment, this is an administrative change from the Department of Revenue to the worldwide combined reporting language. This is actually establishes a subtraction for subpart F income because that income would be included in the income of the unitary group, so you want to include the subpart F subtraction to avoid double taxation. 2.8 to 2.11 is a similar international, and also 2.12 to 2.15. These are technical corrections to the international tax language that was adopted in 2019. This is pretty similar to the language that's on 1.4 to 1.8. This also relates to the worldwide combined reporting provision. 2.16 to 2.22 is another subpart F subtraction that's similar to the one I described earlier. 2.23 to 3.10 of the amendment is language relating to the credit for teachers attaining master's degrees in special education. This contemplates a situation where a teacher completed a program in 1 year, but was not a fully licensed teacher upon completion of the program, but became a fully licensed teacher the following year. And this would allow them to receive the credit in those circumstances. On page 3, lines 11 and 12, it's a change to the manufactured home credit. This was a technical change from the Department of Revenue that limits the credit to sales of manufactured home parks in Minnesota. And also updates a cross-reference that cites the definition of manufactured home parks. On 3.13 to 5.27, there's more changes to the worldwide combined reporting. These are administrative changes that clarify that net income and sales factors must be included when determining net income in Minnesota's apportionment percentages. And it also clarifies the determination of the Internal Revenue Code for foreign corporations that are not required to file a federal return. Lines 5.28 to 6.17 and 6.24 are more changes related to the worldwide combined reporting. These clarify that profit and loss statements from foreign corporations would have to be filed in U.S. dollars and allows reasonable approximations of income information for foreign corporations if the profit and loss reporting requirements are too burdensome. 6.18 to 6.23 is another international tax correction based on the 2019 bill. And it makes a conforming change to the subpart F rules for corporations that are not in the unitary group. Line 6.25 to 7.5. There are administrative changes for the stillborn credit. It essentially allows the stillborn credit changes in the bill are retroactive to when the credit was enacted, and this is just an administrative change that allows individuals that are covered by that retroactivity to file an amended return past the current law statute of limitations. 7.6 to 7.9 is another international tax technical correction from 2019. It repeals unnecessary definitions of deemed repatriation and an unnecessary addition for estates and trusts. For specific federal international tax deductions. And my colleague, Ms. Hagler, will walk through the second half of the amendment.
Mr. Chair and members, lines 7.10 to 7.12 make some technical clarifications to the PILT provisions. Lines 7.13 to 7.23 make some conforming changes to the department's timeline for computing transfers to MHFA with the timeline for computing and paying aid under the local affordable housing program. Lines 7.24 to 8.1 make changes to the study of state-owned lakeshore by moving back some dates and clarifying the meaning of shoreline area. Lines 8.2 to 8.3 clarify that the sales tax exemption relates to sales and use tax and puts that language in the body rather than just in the heading. Line 8.4 to 8.6 clarify that a mining company must demonstrate that it is not subject to minimum payment under the gross proceeds tax due to litigation. Line 8.7 relates to the renters and child credit and moves an effective date for the simplified return for taxpayers without a filing requirement to tax year 2024. Line 8.8 requires landlords to provide tenants with renters credit certificates of rent paid by January 31 of the filing season rather than March 1st. Lines 8.9 to 8.11 modify existing language requiring DOR to provide county assessors with a list of names and social security numbers of individuals who applied for both homestead status and the renter's credit. This allows DOR to provide the individual taxpayer identification number. Lines 8.12 to 8.13 allows federally recognized tribes to be eligible for taxpayer outreach grants. Lines 8.14 to 8.15 require MMB to consult with DOR on updating the taxpayer receipt. Line 8.16 makes a clarification to the term email to use the more commonly used term in statute. Lines 8.17 through 8.18 And line 8.21 to 8.24, add an effective date of July 1 to the July 1, 2024 to the e-pull tab regulatory changes. Line 8.19 to 8.20 removes new language relating to the resemblance of e-pull tabs to paper pull tabs and reinstates current law. 8.25 to 8.27 requires that a petition establishing a tourism improvement district includes a definition of a type of business that will be subject to the tourism improvement district or tourism improvement charges. And Mr. Chair, that concludes the author's amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Hagler and Mr. Williams. Any discussion on the A13 amendment? Representative Anderson actually raised her.
Go ahead.
All right.
Same question.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Chair Norris. Can we get some clarification on the changes that are made to the charitable gambling and e-pull tabs information?
Ms. Hagler?
Mr. Chair and Representative Olson, so the first change is that it is adding an effective date of July 1, 2024 to the regulation changes that require or disallow the use of the open all feature. So then also on line 8.19 of the amendment, excuse me, this relates to the, it doesn't completely remove the requirement that the open all feature be removed. It just, there's a provision that states that the e-pull tab game contain facsimiles of paper pull tabs, and a portion of that section was amended to kind of clarify that clarify the wording, but the amendment is defaulting back to the original what's in statute, if that makes sense. So on page 251, line 9 through 11 of the underlying amendment contains some language. It contains multiple paragraphs that kind of state that the first paragraph says that electronic pull tab games means a pull tab game containing 1, facsimiles of pull tab tickets that are played on electronic pull tab device. That language is current law right now. However, in the A23-0111 amendment, those lines are reconfigured to contain some new language, and this author's amendment to the amendment is just putting it back to how it was, just in this one instance.
Chair Gomez, did you want to chime in?
I think Ms. Hagler kind of covered what I was going to point Representative Olson to, just that it's, it's this one, the one part on 251.9 to 11 that it changes, but it does keep, kind of the overall intent of the original language in the DE there. It changes the effective date and then just reverts to the original language on these two lines. But I think Ms. Hagler kind of covered that, but I don't know if that helps clarify for Representative Olson what we're talking about here.
Anything further, Representative Olson, or do you want me to go to Representative Anderson?
Well, I think we have the exact same question, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So we're talking about this open all feature, and we're seeing a date that's a new effective date. Is or is not the open all feature going to be going away? Is it going to be changing? How is that going to be affected with this new amendment? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chair Gomez.
Yeah, so I mean, I know we have an amendment on this, so we're going to maybe talk more about it later. But yeah, at this point, I mean, if you look at 252 or pages 251 and 252 of the DE, there is the requirement that they be manually activated and that the design of them aligns with paper pull tabs, which was the original deal, basically, when e-pull tabs were put into place. And we're going to, again, I kind of we're going to go into a more full discussion, I think, when we pull up the amendment, but.
Okay.
But just, these two changes were requested by the charities, and so, we thought, pushing the effective date out so that there's time to develop new designs was a reasonable request. And, again, we'll talk about it, but I just, we heard loud and clear yesterday from, from charities, and we've heard from our members, especially, I know that Representative Lissegard and Representative Brand have been kind of working with us over the last few days to try to make sure that like we're pursuing a balanced approach. And the intent is to continue as we move through conference to work with the charities and with the tribal communities to come to, language that works for everybody. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Chair Norris. I also have a clarifying question, probably for Ms. Hagler. Want to point us to line 8.7 of the author's amendment. Can you just clarify if this means that if we're inserting 2023, I just want to compare that with what it says in the memo and clarify, like, when are people filing for this and what tax year is it? Thanks.
Mr. Williams.
Chair Norris and Representative Lee. So the change in the author's amendment relates to a specific provision that's in the renter's credit article. It applies to both the child credit and other refundable credits and the renter's credit. That requires the Department of Revenue to establish sort of a simplified filing process for people that don't have a filing requirement, presumably because their incomes are too low. In the original amendment, the A230111 amendment, that provision was effective for tax year 23, so returns filed 24. The broader renter's credit changes in the bill are effective for tax year 24, returns filed 25. And so the author's amendment is moving that simplified filing requirement out to the effective date for the renter's credit. So there will be 1 year sort of after the enactment of the bill where that simplified filing requirement's not in place, but then it will be established in the following tax year, so tax year 24.
Thank you.
Representative Lee.
Thank you.
Representative Swedzinski.
Mr. Chair, I'll just wait till we get to some of the amendments to ask my question.
Thank you. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, if someone could just walk me through what the changes are more on the worldwide combined reporting. That was quick, and I'm not sure I fully understand what's going on here.
It looks like we're bringing Mr. Klayman up. Mr. Klayman?
Mr. Chair and Representative Robbins, sure. So just in general, the worldwide combined reporting changes are just technical and administrative. And I can go through each one of them in a little bit more detail if that would be helpful. I know there are around four changes that are not necessarily related specifically to worldwide combined reporting, but they're just technical changes, cleaning up the 2019 conformity bill to the TCJA. So there's some international tax provisions that are just not necessary or they're obsolete. So the first one of those international tax, what we're calling the international tax technical corrections from 2019, that's line 1.4 to 1.8 of the amendment of the, what's the A13 amendment. So there's that one, that's an international tax technical correction. Also then 2.8 to 2.11, 2.12 to 2.15. And there is, I think, one more. There's a repealer section 2, 6.18 to 6.25. Oh, excuse me, that's a less substantive one. Sorry, 7.6 to 7.9. And I can go into some more detail on those if you'd like, but then there are also just some administrative changes specifically for worldwide combined reporting as well.
Representative Robbins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that. Yeah, I don't need to go into all the technical stuff right now, although I'll probably follow up with you. But I would like to better understand this new subpart F income. What does that mean?
Mr. Clayman.
Yep. So, Mr. Chair and Representative Robbins, subpart F income is currently taxed in Minnesota. This is, I think I think a good way to look at it is it's in the same universe as, say, global intangible low taxed income. And so that's currently taxed in Minnesota. It's treated as a dividend. However, if the state were to go to worldwide combined reporting, the amount of subpart F income would show up in the net income of a foreign corporation that's now part of the unitary group. So that subpart F income essentially would be taxed under worldwide combined reporting already. So what the subpart F provisions in the A13 amendment do is it would create a new subtraction for the shareholders of those foreign corporations, so that subpart F income is not taxed twice. And that would be effective at the same time that the worldwide combined reporting provisions would be effective, to just align those up.
Got it. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the A13 amendment? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
The A13 amendment is adopted. All right, next we'll take up a series. Next we'll take up a series of amendments. The first is going to be the A3 amendment from Representative Anderson. Representative Anderson, would you like to move your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the A3 amendment.
The A3 amendment is moved. To your amendment, Representative Anderson.
Thank you. We are, I think we have our arms around this because the author's amendment changed some things, but this is still, this still works as an amendment with the sections. I want to start, I think today is a good example of what we've seen on this issue. On Monday at noon or so, the tax bill was posted. There were things in the tax bill. This provision is one of them that were never brought before any committees. We had never heard. This is an issue on e-pull tabs gambling. It was never brought to Commerce or any other committees, and all of a sudden it showed up in the tax bill. We had members of the public had about 5 hours that they had to figure out what was going on and to sign up to testify before 5 p.m. on Monday and to attempt to get on the list of, I think there were 43 testifiers that we heard from yesterday. That's I have a real concern about that process and about the fact that this was brought up very last minute and now it's being amended also very last minute. Frankly, should this provision end up in the tax bill, I would argue it needs a fiscal note because we have, there are 1,100 charities across our state and every one of our districts that do charitable gambling. It's about $4.1 billion in sales. About half of that is e-pull tabs. The revenue to the state is $180 million in tax revenue. And should e-pull tabs be decimated, which is what this language does, which is what this bill does, I would argue that we probably need about a $90 million fiscal note or more, a negative fiscal note. Our charities across our state and again across our districts, they're good charities. We've seen a lot of fraud in the nonprofit world over the last couple of years. Charities and nonprofits that have gotten money or done things with tax dollars, they don't have paperwork in order. There's been abuse, fraud, huge, multi hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone out the door. The charities on the list that we all got, and it's a list of 1,100 active gambling organizations who are all solid, who all do their paperwork, who are approved by the Gambling Control Board. 1,100 charities. And they donate about $130 million to local causes within our communities. That's a significant amount of money. And it's not tax dollars. We're not creating and taxing other people and giving it to charities that may or may not spend it correctly and to do things. These are folks that are solid and they're in our community. It's $130 million. On top of that, our VFWs, our Legions, our Lions Clubs, our other charities, they partner with the bars and restaurants in the state. And all of us know that the bars and restaurants still have not, they're still not where they were from the pre-COVID times. You know, my local restaurants are still closed on certain days of the weeks. And there's workforce shortages, there's supply chain issues, there's inflation issues, and they're hurting. And they're hurting all across our state and in every one of our communities. But those that partner with these charities, helps them. It helps get folks into the restaurants. It helps a little bit on the bottom line. It helps with rents. And it's something that, again, we're doing, and it isn't costing taxpayers a dime, that we're helping folks. This change in this language, removing the open all feature, whether it's a little better with the author's amendment than it was, it still will decimate our local charities. It will decimate our hockey groups and our sports clubs and our youth organizations. And we have discussed over the last 4 months that we should have purpose statements for tax expenditures. This is not a tax expenditure, but what is the purpose of doing this, of harming, greatly harming our local charities? What is the purpose? I would argue, I don't know what's the purpose, that we would do this to them. But that's exactly what this does, what this language does. And there is no public reason to hurt these groups and to hurt our local hockey teams and our local soccer clubs and our local parks and everything else that this will do. So I understand that the author and the chair, that there's discussion. This is an ongoing discussion. But again, this is a very, very last minute thing that we're doing to these folks. And it should not be in any bill, much less a last minute add into a tax bill. So I will leave it at that and yield the floor. Oh, and I'd like a roll call on this.
Roll call being requested. Roll call will be granted. Chair Gomez.
Thank you, Chair Norris. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background and context on the sort of genesis of e-pull tabs in our state. So in 2012, the legislature passed and the governor signed into law the legalization of electronic pull tabs and electronic bingo for use by charitable gaming organizations. Now, at that time, there was an agreement that electronic pull tabs would be defined as facsimiles of pull tab tickets played on an electronic pull tab device. And so these were supposed to be just like an electronic version of a pull tab where you pull the tabs physically with your hands. So at that time in 2012, the tribes who were originally opposed to this, because, the tribal gaming enterprise is an exclusive, there's a negotiation there that there is tribal exclusivity with respect to casino gambling in the state of Minnesota. At that time, the tribes dropped their opposition to this expansion after this language was added, the language that clearly stated that e-pull tabs are supposed to be, quote, facsimiles of pull tab tickets played on an electronic pull tab device and cannot include representations that mimic a video slot machine, must be open like paper pull tabs. So this was the original deal in 2012. Now, e-pull tabs didn't really take off at first. However, after a few years, and this was like to pay off the bonds for the stadium, for the Viking Stadium. So after a few years, the Gambling Control Board began to approve game design that did not align with this original intent and this original deal from 2012. So since 2015 at least, the Gambling Control Board's been approving these pull-tab games, which really function and look like video slot machines, which was in violation of the law and certainly in violation of the deal that was struck. So in recently, back in February 27th, and there's been some conversation and I think some disagreement about what the Court of Appeals decision was. And so we heard, our intent here is to align our policy with that Court of Appeals decision. And we had some testifiers yesterday who were like, that's not what the Court of Appeals decision said. And it's true, the Court of Appeals didn't say, hey, legislature, you have to do X, Y, Z, or this is what, this is, they weren't like prescribing this is what the solution to this issue is. What the Court of Appeals ruled on February 27th was that they agreed with the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community and other tribes who filed amicus briefs that the Gambling Control Board had ignored that original 2012 legislative intent and had engaged in illegal unpromulgated rulemaking to approve electronic pull tabs. So that was the ruling of the appeals court. So it was about the mechanism of like the Gambling Control Board approving these games, that did not align with what the word and intent of the 2012 law was. So the Gambling Control Board decided not to appeal the court's decision, and so the court's decision, that February 27th decision, is final. As I said, I just want to say a few things. We heard from those organizations yesterday, and we've heard Representative Lisgard and Representative Brand have been working on this and have been advocating for those organizations, and we're not denying that, the good that those organizations do for communities across the state, and completely understand and respect that people wish those activities to continue. But I mean, to say that changing the design of this game to align, to keep our word and to follow the law is going to decimate or kill or eliminate e-pull tabs is simply not true. It's simply not true. We had people up here yesterday saying, oh, it's going to result in a 20 to 60% drop in revenue. You're saying 20 to 60%, like that, what does that even mean at some point if you're using such a wide range of kind of, it's a guess about what's going to happen. So, as I said, we have this in the bill. We also have a cut to the charitable gaming's net receipts tax, which I also heard loud and clear from the organizations yesterday that they want a bigger tax reduction. Now, I will just say that it's my intention to move forward with this in committee, to continue the conversations, but I just want to be really clear. This legislature, we will be honoring, as stewards of this institution, we will be honoring our word to the sovereign tribal nations. That is not a negotiation. It's the Minnesota Court of Appeals has ruled on this. It is clear in the law, and we will be staying true to our word. And as we move forward, it's like, this isn't an attack on these charities. It's like, we acknowledge, we're trying to give some allowance, like, hey, we know these are going to have to be, we know that some of these games are going to have to be redesigned. But, tell me that, like, if you have to touch one button versus touching 3 buttons to open, 3 panes in an electronic pull tab, that, like, nobody's going to play them anymore, or it's going to completely, like, make it so that they functionally don't exist. I think it's a little bit of hyperbole. So So I appreciate this. Again, like, you know, there's concerns from your side, there's concerns from our side. We intend to move forward in a balanced way and to continue conversations, and conversations have been happening already between, you know, some leadership in our caucus and the concerned parties. So, you know, I'm really hopeful that we're going to, between kind of some of these redesigns to align with our word as an institution and a state government, and to align with this Court of Appeals decision, and to continue this conversation about the tax on charitable gaming. I'm hopeful that we can come to a resolution that everybody is at least satisfied with, and I would ask members to vote against this amendment today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to bring the tribe, you know, I didn't want to bring the tribes into this discussion, because to me they're separate issues, even though very, very clearly linked, because I think that's the intent of this language. But I want to just point out a few things. There is no tribal exclusivity on gaming. It's simply that this legislature hasn't authorized others. There's never been any agreement that there's exclusivity on things. I was also here in 2012. So I know what happened at that time. I know, you know, all the back deal stuff, everything. I want to point out that paper pull tabs, they can also be opened all at once. So this doesn't make any sense. And the court ruling, I want to point out that this is, if the court ruling just stands and this legislature does nothing, which is what this amendment is attempting to do, nothing will change. Nothing will change. The court ruling never discussed or commented on the original agreement. So there's a lot of, I think there's some disagreement about what it meant, but the fact is what it meant is that nothing changes from what came out of the court. So this legislature, by taking any sort of action on this issue, is attempting to harm the charitable gambling. They're attempting to change things and to harm things for our charities. And it's just very wrong. We can do nothing and things will be the same. There will be no harm. The charities will go on their way. The tribes will go on their way. The paper pull tabs can still be opened all at once with a hand. And so I think there's heavy disagreement on this issue. And I would just encourage folks that may not support this amendment to really think about what you're doing to your communities and why. Why are we hurting our local charities? Why would we do that? So,
Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Gomez, you spoke yesterday a little bit about the court decision. You spoke again about it today. It's my reading that, you know, as Representative Anderson said, and I appreciate the amendment, that the court's decision stood. And in no place in that decision does it state that the legislature needs to take action and change. It wasn't ordered to. I think even the Attorney General's office themselves have stated, an assistant Attorney General said, you know, there is no movement that the legislature has to make because of this court ruling. Did I miss something in that?
Chair Gomez.
Chair Norris and Representative Swedzinski, I mean, yeah, I literally said that just now.
Yeah.
I said, yes, it's true. The court did not tell the legislature to do anything. They agreed with the amicus briefs that were filed by the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux community and other tribes that the Gambling Control Board had been promulgating through rulemaking designs of games that did not align with the original law that was passed in 2012. So yeah, nobody told us to do anything, but that's our choice as a legislature. And as I said, our choice as a legislature is to keep our word to the sovereign tribes Thank you.
Representative Sudzinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think that's a good point. You know, we do have a choice. You know, I'm not a gambling person. I don't, you know, if we could get rid of all this stuff and everything, you know, I would probably vote for that. And in the past, I've not supported, you know, the changes that I believe was happening between the Gambling Control Board. But at the end of the day, the original pull tab situation that was created was failing. It was not bringing in the revenue that it was supposed to. And now here we sit as a legislature. The public is used to these games the way they are. They support them. The public likes them. The customers of the bars and restaurants and charities across the state like them and use them. And they're not being forced to put their money in the machines. They're doing it voluntarily because they enjoy them. I mean, if the argument was being made before us to say, you know what, we find that these e-pull tabs games are damaging people, causing them to spend money that they shouldn't, well, that would at least make sense. But at the end of the day, what I'm seeing is that this was a relationship of convenience. Governor Dayton and Governor Walz, up to not that long ago, was generally in support of the games the way they were. Why? Because it bailed them out. It bailed them out for a bad idea to fund a stadium. Now that it's paid off, it just so happens, oh, hey, you know, well, I guess, hey, let's pay this thing off early. And oh yeah, by the way, this thing that the general public likes, that's supportive, that builds baseball stadiums, that buys jerseys for little kids. You know what? I don't think those folks, it's just too dangerous for them. I just don't think that they should do that anymore. You know, I really do feel it's wrong. You know, yesterday at the end of the committee hearing, I said, hey, is anyone in the public wanting to come before the committee and testify on behalf of this? And not a single person came to that table right there and said in public, when they were looking those veterans organizations in the eye and said, you know what, I support that. I think we want it. It didn't happen. That would have been a good time to do it. But this amendment came at the dark of night. No warning. Gave hours to the organizations to say, hey, by the way, you need to get up here, drop what you're doing, take a day off work, show up, plead your case. We have a choice. Representative Gomez said we do have a choice. We can choose something that didn't work in 2010 and jam it back into the industry, or 12, and side with sovereign nations, which is fine. Or we can side with the 1,100 charities that like the way it is. And Representative Anderson, I appreciate your amendment, because I think at some point, this legislature, we have to make a choice as legislators. If this is just about relationships of convenience until things are paid off, fine, state that. Say, you know what, tough. You were handy, we got what you wanted out of you out of the charities. Thanks for applying. We're going to give you some token tax relief that's going to make up. You know, we're going to make sure, you know, from their own numbers, they don't know. They don't know, right? Since 2015, these have been going 8 years. And to pull the rug out of these folks, I just think it's, I don't understand why you would do it. And I don't even like it. Thank you, Representative Anderson.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, Chair Gomez, I do appreciate that you are open to these conversations and that the effective date is pushed out. I mean, to me, that's illustrative of why this shouldn't have been rushed through. This is a huge, huge issue, and I appreciate that maybe this just is happening now, but I've served for 5 years. Every single year, I have carried bills to reduce the tax on charitable gaming, to allow veterans organizations to use some of their proceeds before taxes to do the upgrade in their facilities. And In 5 years, none of my bills have had a hearing. So it's not like we are not trying to help the charities. It's that we never get the opportunity. But to that point, on if you're taking ideas for what we can do, in my district alone, there have been 3 charities where veterans organizations that have been broken into and their cash has been stolen. And they could use that money for security upgrades if they were allowed to do that, use some of their net proceeds for increasing the security of their operations. And they are denied that. And they are taxed at an outrageous rate. So these charities, I didn't know this till I was a legislator. I just assumed that the money stayed in the community. I had no idea that charitable organizations were paying taxes to the state. And the tax rate is crazy. So at the low end, it's 8.5%. At the high end, it's 36% that they're paying to the state. And they have been good soldiers paying this money all these years. And e-pull tabs came along. And as you noted, at first it wasn't successful. Then it became wildly successful. And based on those taxes that they are paying in, taking money out of our communities, they have single-handedly basically paid off the stadium bonds. And now that is over, and they could keep more of this money in their communities, instead we're pulling the rug out from under them and saying, no, now you have to go back and don't get to have as much revenue because the state doesn't really need it anymore, so you don't get to keep it and give it to your communities. Like, that is so outrageous to me. I can't even begin to understand it. I literally don't know how what's worked well in sort of a 2-track system between the sovereign nations and the charities. It's worked well up until we got the stadium paid off. And all of a sudden, we're going to upend how they both have been able to make significant revenue. And I'm sorry, I think we have to support Representative Anderson's amendment. I don't know that we're going back on any deal. It's been going along with no concern since 2015, and everyone's been happy, I guess, because we were paying off the stadium. But now that that's done, people want to upend it, and I don't see how it's harming the tribes. They still have all their lane, and now the charities might get to keep more of their lane after they've done their civic duty and paid off the stadium that none of them wanted. When I door knocked, when I first ran, I have to tell you, I didn't really know much about this. This was the #1 issue that I heard door knocking back in 2018. People were still so mad then about the stadium being built on their tax dollars. This was what was talked about at the doors all the time in my district. And the fact that now there's a window of hope for charities to keep more of that money, and we're pulling it out from under them it's just mind-blowing to me. I hope we all support the Anderson amendment. Thank you for bringing it.
Representative Joy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, when you look at this and we talk about, charitable gambling and Anderson's amendment, thank you, Patty, or Representative Anderson, for bringing this. When we take these charitable gamblings and we start attacking them and going after them, it's going to cost us more on the city level. Cities like where I'm from, Hawley, we buy our fire trucks with charitable gambling. Granted, we get taxed. They give to food pantries. I think not too long ago on the floor, we passed an emergency food shelf replenishment. Now we're going to go after that. We're going to tell the charitable gamblings, hey, you can't have this open all. Anybody that's played pull tabs or anything, been around those businesses or small businesses, you can buy 1 tickets that open. It's no different than what you're doing here. You can come, to a degree, you can come into a gas station or anywhere and buy a lottery ticket, print it out, check it, and get your redemption right away to see if it's a winner. I mean, it's pretty much an open all feature. I mean, I don't understand why we're attacking these organizations, why we continue. And we talk about the Gambling Control Board and how they've been running wild and not taking care of this. The Gambling Control Board is appointed by the governor and the attorney general. Where's accountability held there? I mean, if they've been allowing these games to come out like this, how come we didn't, seems like this year we're so good at creating another committee, having more people on boards to reevaluate things. Instead of doing something like that, we're going to just stop this right away. We put it in a bill just to stop this and say, no, you guys can't do this anymore. Here's an end date. I am surprised, usually what I've seen this year in everything coming through is you guys will create another conference or another committee with 4 or 5 members on it to talk about this. You know, slow this down. This has been in place. It's going to affect everybody. You know, we look at LGA coming down the pipeline. Well, these cities, when they get hit and these fire relief boards get this taken away, or everybody that contributes, Lions, whatever it is, somehow they're going to get hit. I mean, we're raising LGA, but on the other thing, we're taking away the ETABs. And it seems to me, as we heard on this floor today, is, well, it's grown over the years. It's getting good. Does that mean every time a business grows, we got to tax them and take more from them? I mean, do we in Minnesota want to get rid of successful things? I mean, that's what it seems like to me. Being a small business owner, every time I hear it, it's like, oh, they got too much now. We need to stop what they're doing, or we need to tax them on the business level. It's really, it's just, we have to, this amendment isn't, we're here and we're thinking this is something we need to change or work on. Let's slow this. Let's take this amendment and let's, I don't want another committee or something, but let's create a committee so we can fix this. Thank you.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just really quickly, we talk about this open all feature. It's been around since 2012, since the inception of this style of gaming. But let's be real, no matter what, whether it's 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, or all the way at 60%, these charities will suffer some loss as a result of these changes that we're talking about. And so I just thought, if it's a 10% loss in revenue, then they're going to have to give 10% less to their communities. And so I went and I found an American Legion in one of our districts, and I'll give you a hint, it's not on this side of the table. So there's an American Legion over on that side of the table somewhere, and I will remove any potential cities or names of potential region locations, and I'll try and be really, kind of, like secretive about it, and then you can try on your own to figure out whose Legion this is. But these are some of the things that they give to their community, and if it's a 10% reduction, then there's actually almost 100 things that they give to. So that's like 10 things that they can't give to anymore. You're gonna have to choose, okay? So let's do no harm here, but these are some of the things that they're doing. This Legion hosts the all-night prom party. So students are safe after prom and not out driving around like crazy people or drinking. The American Legion Family Hospital Association, they buy books for their elementary school. They give money to the Boy Scouts of America. They give money to Boys State of American Legion. Breakfast with Santa. Chapel for 4 chaplains, Children's Weekend Food Program, Choral Parents Association, a County Family Readiness, Disaster Relief. They're giving money to disaster relief, a Family Readiness Group, Flag Fund for Minnesota Square Park, Flags for the 4th of July Parade, Forgotten Children's Program, Girls State for American Auxiliary, Gold Star Mother Fund. Those are, for those of you who don't know, Gold Star is an individual who dies in the line of duty. Their mothers have this care fund. There's a care center that they give money to. There's an assisted living that they give money to. Hurricane disaster relief, that's pretty good. There's a Catholic school that they give money to. The Last Man Club of Vietnam War Era. They give it to Legion Baseball, to a preschool, to local breast cancer awareness, to local scholarships and memorial scholarships, to the Veterans Memorial in their area, to hospice in their area, Memorial Day cemetery flags, the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans, Minnesota Valley Regional Library, Minnesota Veterans Home, the Need a Lift program, the County Fair, Veterans Service Office, People to People, Phones for Veterans Home, Post and Auxiliary Scholarship Programs, Santa Anonymous, Servicemen Center, Shutout Veterans, a co-op, Special Olympics, a clothing fund for veterans, a veterans gift shop, a medical center, a women's rehabilitation memorial, their area food shelf, their veterans memorial, their baseball association, their community Alzheimer's organization, community hospital, the fire department, the Girl Scouts Association. They give it to the gymnastics, the high school band, to hockey, to their hospice, to their public school, to their school patrol, summer celebration and night to unite, their trap team, volleyball association, their wrestling club, their youth ice fishing contest, their volleyball association. They give to a place called The Kitchen, third floor after school program, VA holiday fund, Veterans Emergency Fund, Veterans Pheasant Dinner, Volley for
Olson,
Vets,
I'm gonna ask you
and
to-
Yellow Ribbon for South Central Minnesota.
Thank you.
So, 10%, even if it costs 10%, cut 10% of that. We say Girls State doesn't get any money. We say local auxiliaries don't get any money. We say hospitals don't get any money. Make a choice, 10%, even if it's just 10%. That's 10 things. Let's do no harm here. Don't make the Legions choose who in their communities they're going to support. Let them support as many as they possibly can. And don't take 10% away from them. Because if you do, guess what? That's not my Legion. It's very similar to what my Legions are doing. It's one of your Legions. Let's not do this. Let's leave it the way it is.
Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Gomez, a couple things here. First off, I think it's important to have this discussion, so thank you to the committee for allowing us to do this. But some important issues. Is there an interaction, or what's your intent with the other part of the bill with the tribal nation aid? Which I don't even think we heard that bill in committee. I'm not sure. Is there an interaction with that and the e-poll tabs? Because obviously they're linked in terms of relationship with the tribes and the e-poll tabs and the charitable gambling, as you mentioned. But what's your intent with that? Is there an interplay here with that? I'm trying to understand more of the global picture of what we're setting up here.
Chair Gomez.
Chair Norris, Representative Koznick, no, there isn't an interaction or a, no, is the answer to your question.
Okay, well,
Koznick, Representative Koznick.
thank you. You had mentioned that, it's your choice or the committee's choice to try to address this with the sovereign tribes and the exclusivity for the charitable gambling or gambling, and then now we're talking about charitable gambling that's on there. Maybe it would help with the help the committee kind of get somewhere. You talked about the February 27th court cases. Maybe, and I don't want to put staff on the spot, but if it's possible, could you give us some indication that if there's in 2012, there was 2 administrative law judges rejected that the e-poll tab games violated the law and how that interacts. Are they able to provide a little context for that so that we can further the discussion and base it in a little bit of fact?
Is Representative Koznick, is that a question for nonpartisan staff that you were?
Yeah, I know somebody was chirping in your ear there. Yes, it is. If you could help the committee understand, there was a variety of, my understanding, a couple other cases and relative to this issue.
Yeah, I'll go to Ms. Hagler and see if she's got anything that she thinks can add some light to the situation.
Mr. Chair and Representative Koznick, I don't have the 2012 ALJ cases in front of me. I would have to go back and look them up, so I'm not sure how those relate to this year's Court of Appeals ruling.
Representative Koznick.
Okay, thank you. Maybe if we could, the committee, if you have a chance, could send us an email or a little memo on that. And it has been since 2012, so not exactly in 2012, but my understanding is there's a couple other rulings during that time period talking about the e-poll tab games not violating the law, as I think the author had mentioned. So I think that would be helpful, but I think there is an interaction in everything that we do. If the intent of the wording in the bill relative to the e-poll tabs was a choice because of a February ruling and the author's interpretation of that ruling, that I think there is an interaction with everything that we do at the legislature, whether it's the tribal nation aid or other aids that we're doing, and it has to be looked at more wholly. Therefore, it might be a good idea to, as Representative Joy and the intent of the amendment from Representative Anderson, to delete these sections and have a further look, because in fact, we didn't talk about it in committee, but there's no rush to injure a lot of people. As Representative Olson had mentioned, a lot of Minnesotans across the state, that we should be, let's hit the brakes here, do a little bit deeper dive and make sure we understand what we're doing and all the interactions that play here, because we're hurting the tribes, or excuse me, the charitable gambling organizations and the good work that they do in our communities. We need to at least keep them whole. If not, we could make the argument that the rate of tax that they pay in many cases is the actual tax amount is equal to or even more than they raise themselves for their communities. So we should hit the brakes here, because on the other hand, we're jeopardizing the charitable gamblings, and then the sovereign tribes who have a apparent monopoly on some of the casinos in gambling. They're being paid handsomely on the other end. So we need to take a closer look at that, and I would appreciate the chair's indulgence if we could take a closer look.
All right, members, in the interest of time, we've got Representative Joachim and Representative Whitty on the list, and then after that, I'm going to go to Chair Gomez for some final thoughts, then Representative Anderson for some final thoughts before we vote on the A3 amendment. So Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to be brief. And I just want to say I am, for one, very thankful for all the charities in my community that benefit so many good causes, the ones that do this by donations, the ones that do this by gambling. But I want to bring us back to the bill. E-pull tabs came around in 2012, and there has been a discussion ever since about how they're designed. And in 2019, there was a court case. 2021, we had a bill. And if you just look at how something is designed, paper pull tabs are designed to be opened one at a time. You may have found a technique where you can open all three at once, or they may have evolved over time. But we also talk a lot about legislative intent here. And why I'm a fan of a purpose statement, which this bill had originally on the underlying language on 2.51.3 through 251.5 or 5.4, there's a legislative intent, purpose statement that's there. We make laws here, and sometimes we're not very clear when we make our laws, and we have other people look at them, and we come back and clarify them to make sure our legislative intent is clear. Frankly, I'm not a lawyer. Not a lot of lawyers around this table, but we play lawyers. We play lawyers. I said not a lot. There are some. We play lawyers here at the Capitol a lot of the times. And frankly, I probably haven't had enough coffee this morning to actually try to play lawyer. But if you look at the underlying language in 251.21, where it says no spinning wheels or other representations that mimic a video slot machine. The one-touch access is a video slot machine. This has been discussion after discussion since 2012 about making sure that we're hitting that legislative intent. And now we have an appeals court ruling that says that the Gambling Control Board did not live up to our legislative intent. Folks, I would like to think that people take our legislative intent seriously. And I want to thank Representative Gomez and the folks that have been working on this over the years. And whether or not folks agree that a one-touch game is a video game may be a whole nother issue. What I know we do agree on is that our charities and our legions and our VFWs and our bars that have pull tabs do an amazing job for our communities. That is not the case. That is not the factor in this language. The factor in this language is to make sure that our legislative intent is clear. And we do that all the time when we go back and tweak laws because people are confused about what we meant when we put them in place. I also have a really hard time believing that just because somebody has to press more than one button, they're going to stop playing. My husband plays pull tabs every week with a group of friends just to blow off some steam. Makes me nervous. We've had friends that have lost their house because of pull tabs. But that's not at issue right now. Right now, at issue is whether or not we are upholding our legislative intent from the underlying language and making it more clear so people understand. So I just want to kind of bring us and ground us back into the reality of what this language does. So thank you.
Representative Whitty.
Thank you, Chair Norris. And thank you, Chair Gomez, for understanding the importance of maybe taking some time to still look at this a little bit. I think it all came on us a little bit by surprise. I don't think that was by design. But what I want to talk about is we all have these groups that help our families and youth all in our community. And I was president of a nonprofit soccer club. And I have seen the firsthand effect that this can have on our youth, our low income, our middle income families, where someone has the opportunity to play a sport or be in an event, and it keeps them off the streets. It keeps them out of keeping in trouble. And they might be the first one in their family to go off to college because of the skills that they have that they might not have had. And that's why these charities, when they provide these opportunities, it's to a club or our groups in our communities, but it's also hitting families. And that's the message that I think I'd like to look at this. Hopefully there's ways we can do it. It's been 12 years. It has some success. We heard last night we can get creative on the ways we do things. I think there's probably some solution in here. I heard yesterday from the tribal nation leaders, and they were doing great things, but I was also hearing from the VFWs, and they're doing the same things. They're trying to help each other. So hopefully we could come to some agreement, and I am in support of Representative Anderson's amendment. Thank you.
Chair Gomez, any closing thoughts on the A3 amendment?
Yeah, just really quickly, I appreciate the conversation, and I really like, actually, this is a little, obviously something that we disagree on, but I like hearing about all of your passion for your communities and for the organizations that do good in your communities, and about what that means. That that matters, and we need to talk about that. And I'm certainly not disputing that charitable gambling does good across the state of Minnesota. It does. And, but I do just want to say, it's sort of like people have said we're attacking charities, we're attempting to harm charities, we're pulling the rug out from under charities, and we're not attempting to harm anybody. I'm certainly not trying to attack anyone, who's trying to do good in the world. But it's also not the case, as it was stated, that there's been no concern about this. It's not the case, as was stated, that everyone has been happy with the way this has been going. This appeals court decision that happened in February was sort of the latest step in a long line of actions that the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community and other tribes have taken to try to attempt to address this, sort of the issue around the rulemaking that has been promulgated by the Gambling Control Board since 2015, as Swedzinski said, that does not align with having e-pull tabs designed to mimic paper pull tabs. So, again, just in closing, I want to say this conversation's not done. We're going to continue to work with everybody, who's concerned about this. I mean, you guys know this. Like, this isn't my thing. I care about taxes and stuff. So I'm a little bit in the middle here, but I do just want to say that, like, we don't want to harm anybody. We don't want to attack anybody. We don't want to pull the rug out from under anybody. But that includes, like, people and entities and in one case, and tribal nations, right, sovereign nations on both sides of this issue. And so we're going to continue to just to try to come to an agreement and a solution that people can feel better about. And I know this has just been hard, and that it's been like, not just hard for you guys, it's been hard for us too. And, I'm hopeful that we can find a way forward together. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Anderson, any final remarks on your amendment?
Thank you, and I'll be brief because we'll have a very bigger conversation on the floor, I suspect, next week. I just want to just remind the body that we have, the open all feature and pull tabs has been happening since 2012. That's 11 years ago. 11 years. And it's been successful. And as it's become more and more successful, as our charities have become more and more successful, that's when there was maybe concern from competitors. This is a competitor issue. In 2011, the whole gambling thing came up because the governor at the time wanted to build a stadium, and that's why it came up. And there were proposals to build a casino in downtown Minneapolis, and I believe the mayor was supportive of that. And probably a quarter of the legislature was supporting a bill to build a casino in downtown Minneapolis. And there were bills to add slots to the racetracks, and there were all sorts of things. The compromise was the charities, and it was to allow the charities to do e-poll tabs, tax them hugely, 35% or more, and use that money to pay off the stadium, to do the stadium bonds. And it worked, folks. It worked. And it also was a great solution because they were able to throw a ton of money into our local communities. It wasn't money going to one business that was going to build a casino downtown Minneapolis or something. This money goes to our local communities. Now that the stadium is paid off, all of a sudden, it is, and to me, very much pulling the rug out from under our charities. And it's just wrong. And there's was some discussion from some of my colleagues about slowing down the whole process. I think we need to kill the whole process. We should not be doing this to our charities. And so I encourage everyone to vote yes on the amendment. Should the amendment to that vote fail and this goes on to a tax bill on the floor, we can have a long discussion on the issue. But this is just wrong, and you're hurting your communities. Thank you.
With that, Representative Anderson renews her motion on the A3 amendment. A roll call has been requested. Ms. Sabas will take the roll.
Chair Gomez.
No.
Chair Gomez, no. Vice Chair Norris.
No.
Vice Chair Norris, no. Lead Davids, excused. Representative Agbaje.
No.
Representative Agbaje, no. Representative Anderson.
Yes.
Representative Anderson, yes. Representative Brand.
No.
Representative Brand, no. Representative Elkins.
No.
Representative Elkins, no. Representative Howard.
No.
Representative Howard, no. Representative Joy.
Yes.
Representative Joy, yes. Representative Koznick.
Yes.
Representative Koznick, yes. Representative Lee.
No.
Representative Lee, no. Representative Listlegard. No. Representative Listlegard, no. Representative Olson B.
Yes.
Representative Olson B, yes. Representative Olson L.
No.
Representative Olson L, no. Representative Pinto.
No.
Representative Pinto, no. Representative Robbins.
Yes.
Representative Robbins, yes. Representative Smith.
No.
Representative Smith, no. Representative Swedzinski.
Yes.
Representative Swedzinski, yes. Representative Weiner.
Yes.
Representative Weiner, yes. Representative Whitty.
Yes.
Representative Whitty, yes. Representative Uakim.
No.
Representative Uakim, no. Mr. Chair, there are 8 ayes, 12 nays, and 1 member excused.
There being 8 ayes, 12 nays, and 1 excused, the A3 amendment is not adopted. Next, I have the A4 amendment from Representative Robbins. Representative Robbins, would you like to move your A4 amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move the A4.
Representative Robbins moves the A4 amendment. Representative Robbins, after the adoption of a resolution by the Committee on Ways and Means, an amendment to a bill is out of order if it would cause any of the limits specified in the resolution to be exceeded. It is my determination that this amendment, the A4 amendment, would cause those limits to be exceeded, and therefore I find the A4 amendment out of order.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Robbins.
So just so the public knows, this amendment is trying to delete, to change the Social Security so it's a full elimination of the Social Security tax. We have had this conversation multiple times in this committee. We will continue to have it on the floor. And my understanding from our staff was that it wouldn't be out of order in committee. It would be maybe when it got to Ways and Means, but not in this committee. So I just submit, Mr. Chair, that I know we've had this conversation a lot, but this conversation is important. Many of us on both sides of the aisle campaigned on eliminating the tax on Social Security, and we will just continue to fight that all the way down.
Thank you, Representative Robbins. And we did consult with House fiscal staff in making that determination that this would be, it would be a violation of Article 4.03H because it would cause the limits specified in the budget resolution to be exceeded. Representative Robbins.
Thank you. Well, then I would like to offer an oral amendment, Mr. Chair, and change the effective date to 2028 because then it would not violate the budget agreement.
Representative Robbins, the A4 amendment has been ruled out of order. You can offer another amendment if you would like.
Okay.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to offer a new version of the A4 that has the effective date of 2028.
Mr. Chair,
Representative Swedzinski.
could we have nonpartisan staff kind of read out that amendment, just how that would have to read out so we know exactly what's before us?
Mr. Williams, would you be willing to read out what that oral amendment would be?
So Chair Norris and Representative Robbins, is the intent of the amendment to be effective for tax year 2028 or fiscal year 2028?
Representative Robbins.
Fiscal year 2028.
Mr. Williams.
Chair Norris and Representative Robbins, so on page 2 by 19 of the amendment, you would strike 2022 and insert 2026. That would make the bill effective for taxable years beginning after December 31st, 2026. That's tax year 27, and the fiscal effect of the bill will be in fiscal 28.
And Mr. Chair, could we have a roll call on that?
Representative Robbins, at the moment, the A4 amendment is not before the committee. You could make a motion to reconsider the A4 amendment.
Mr. Chair, I move that we reconsider the A4 as amended.
Representative Robbins moves to reconsider the A4, and then if it is reconsidered, we would then do the amendment.
So I move to reconsider the A4, and I ask for a roll call.
Amendments are available in the text.
We have to. Before we can do an oral amendment on the A4, we have to have the A4 amendment back before the committee.
So I move the A4, I move reconsideration of the A4.
Representative Robbins moves for reconsideration of the A4 amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No. Roll call, Mr. Chair.
No, I'm just gonna make an oral amendment and I'll read the whole dang thing out. Here, can I have your amendment? Mr. Chair?
The motion to reconsider the A4 amendment is not adopted.
Mr. Chair, I would like to offer a new oral amendment. I can read the text right now.
It's a completely new amendment.
All right, Representative Robbins, we are going to have you present a new amendment.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to amend HF 1938, the delete everything amendment A23-0111 as follows. Page 25, delete section 19 and insert. Section of Minnesota Statutes 2022, section 2090.0132, subdivision 26 is amended to read, subdivision 26, Social Security benefits, sub A. The amount of qualified retirement benefits is allowed as a subtraction. Striking everything else to sub C. For purposes of this section, we're inserting qualified public pension income means any amount received, sub 1, by a basic member of any pension plan governed by Chapter 3A, 352B, 353, 354, or 354A, or the basic member's survivor, provided that the annuity or benefit is based on service for which the member or survivor is not also receiving Social Security benefits, sub 2, from any retirement system administered by the federal government that is based on service for which the recipient or recipient survivor is also not receiving Social Security benefits, or sub 3, from a public retirement system of or created by another state or any of its political subdivisions if the income tax laws of the other state permit a similar deduction or exemption or a reciprocal deduction or exemption of a retirement or pension benefit received from a public retirement system or created by this state or any political subdivision of the state. Sub D, for purposes of this section, qualified retirement benefits means the sum of Social Security benefits and qualified public pension income. Effective date, this section is effective for tax years beginning December 31st, 2026. Page 26, delete section 21, renumber the sections in sequence and correct the internal references, amend the title accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. Roll call will be granted. Mr. Williams, are you able to just kind of quick give us a recap of what the amendment is that's before us?
Exactly what
Yeah.
Chair Norris and Representative Robbins, my interpretation of this amendment would be that it would allow an unlimited Social Security subtraction uncapped by income, and also an unlimited subtraction for income from basic pension plans, similar to how the bill would allow a subtraction for income from basic pension plans.
And the effective date.
And Chair Norris and members, that would be effective for tax year 27, fiscal 28.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, we now have an amendment before us. Representative Robbins, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I actually wasn't sure if it would be ruled out of order. We were under the impression it wouldn't, so, but last night on the floor, we actually saw this happen. In the continuing appropriation that was in the bill on the floor last night, so any sum can be appropriated for legislative and other activities in perpetuity. They purposely had the effective date on that for outside the tails so that it wouldn't mess with the budget target on that bill. So we are just taking this intention to eliminate Social Security and putting it outside of the current target, because that's already been said, and I want to be very respectful of that, but it shows the intent of this legislature to eliminate fully the tax on Social Security, and it gives everyone time to figure out how we're going to get there. So, members, I urge unanimous support for this.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I encourage a no vote on this because we obviously have a budget resolution, which we just watched the amendment work around. We have a joint target agreement, which we just saw this amendment work around. And we know the cost of this bill is very spendy, as we saw the fiscal note on a full exemption. And so this is irresponsible to think about sending out billions of dollars in the tails with no idea how we would pay for it. And so I would suggest a no vote.
Continued discussion on, yes, Chair Gomez.
Could say a couple things about this. So the approach in our bill to Social Security, to the Social Security question, as people probably know, what we landed on was a couple married filing jointly who makes $100,000 a year. Anybody up to that income level would pay no tax on their Social Security benefits. The cost of that in the first biennium is $409.2 million, $478.7 in the tails. The cost of the full Social Security exemption would be $1.26 billion in the first biennium, $1.495 billion in the tails. Also, our House research did some looking at what the long-term growth in the cost of exempting Social Security benefits would be. And so, $1.26 billion in 24-25, $1.49 billion 26-27, $1.69 billion 28-29, $1.89 billion 30-31, kind of goes up at that sort of scale. So we're looking at $2 billion a biennium pretty quickly, a couple of years after your amendment would go into place. Now, what we know about Social Security is that if we do the approach that's in this bill, 76% of Social Security beneficiaries will pay no tax on their Social Security. So what we would be doing here would be spending an extra $800 million in the first biennium, almost $1 billion in the second biennium, and going up from there in order to help that top 24% of people who collect Social Security benefits. Now, the convenient thing about the way that the GOP has structured this amendment today is that they don't have to then go in and say, oh, how are you going to pay for that? You don't have to go in and figure out how you're going to come up with $800 million in fiscal year 24 and 25, or $950 million in 26 and 27 within our budget targets. Because if you did, then you'd have to tell us who's getting cut for those top 24% to get $1 billion. Who are we cutting? Are we cutting the homestead property tax refunds that go to help people out with the property tax bills that they're dealing with, which we all know are out of control? 45% of people who collect homestead property tax refunds are seniors and those with disabilities. Would you go in and cut local government aid, which hasn't been keeping pace even in absolute dollars since 2002? Would you go and tell your local governments that? Would you go after the child tax credit that's going to lift 23% of the children who are living in poverty in Minnesota out of poverty? Is that what you'd do to give $1 billion to those top 24? Would you go to the renter's rebate property tax refund? 35% of those folks, those are our lowest income seniors and people with disabilities. Those are the actual decisions that you would have to make if we were doing this amendment in good faith. You would have to tell us who in this bill is going to lose. folks facing out-of-control property taxes that they can't pay, our little kids in our state who are growing up in poverty. So, you know, we've come up with like this neat way to avoid the actual question before us. But the question is still here. The question is still here. If you're choosing the top 20% as winners, then who are you choosing to be losers? That is the question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Final remarks on your amendment, Representative Robbins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for that, Representative Gomez. I think you would be surprised how much we have in common about wanting to help people. I really do. But first of all, I just want to go back and correct a couple things. I learned this technique from the majority. You did this last night in a bill. And so that is where I actually got the idea. So this is something you guys are doing to postpone how you're paying for things by putting it out into the tail. Secondly, there's been a lot of talk around here about how we need to keep our word. And I agree with that. And we gave our word on a bipartisan basis that we would fully eliminate the tax on Social Security. We are one of only 11 states that does that. And so this is about keeping our word. And finally, I don't know, if the amendment is adopted, we will have now longer time to figure out how we would make sure this works within the global state budget. But I've got to say, members, that when we are increasing state government by 36% in 2 years, I think that we can stop some of the out-of-control spending and find a way to help our seniors. So I urge everyone to support the amendment, and I appreciate the opportunity for this discussion. Thank you.
All right, Representative Robbins renews her motion on her oral amendment. A roll call has been requested. Ms. Sabas will take the roll.
Chair Gomez?
No.
Chair Gomez, no. Vice Chair Norris?
No.
Vice Chair Norris, no. Lead Davids, excused. Representative Agbaje?
No.
Representative Agbaje, no. Representative Anderson?
Yes.
Representative Anderson, yes. Representative Brand?
No.
Representative Brand, no. Representative Elkins? No. Representative Elkins, no. Representative Howard?
No.
Representative Howard, no. Representative Joy?
Yes.
Representative Joy, yes. Representative Koznick?
Yes.
Representative Koznick, yes. Representative Lee?
No.
Representative Lee, no. Representative List-Lagarde? Representative List-Lagarde, no. Representative Olson B?
Yes.
Representative Olson B, yes. Representative Olson L?
No.
Representative Olson L, no. Representative Pinto?
No.
Representative Pinto, no. Representative Robbins?
Yes.
Representative Robbins, yes. Representative Smith?
No.
Representative Smith, no. Representative Swedzinski?
Yes.
Representative Swedzinski, yes. Representative Weiner?
Yes.
Representative Weiner, yes. Representative Whitty?
Yes.
Representative Whitty, yes. Representative Youakim?
No.
Representative Youakim, no. Mr. Chair, there are 8 ayes, 12 nays, and 1 member excused.
There being 8 ayes and 12 nays, Representative Robbins' oral amendment is not adopted. Next, we have the House File 106 amendment from Representative Olson. Representative Olson, would you like to move your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I just want a minute to talk about it. I don't want to fiddle around with, pushing it out to 2028, any of that stuff. And I also don't want to take, old coin sales tax revenue and take it from, children and that kind of stuff. So I just want to have an opportunity to talk about, I think that our state needs to look at investing in other ways of gaining more tax revenue. And this is a really small one. The fiscal cost of it would have been about $2.4 million per year, which really impressed me because that means that there's a thriving investment in coins in this state, which was really impressive to me. It means about $35 million a year is spent on just coins. But what I want to talk about is, first of all, this bill is just an adaptation of one that is already on our books. We're talking about state bullion. There's no sales tax for bullion. Things that are like 99.9% silver or gold are not taxed by the state of Minnesota. They're seen as an investment. There's a lot of currency in circulation that is in fact made of precious metals that are less than 99%. So a lot of U.S. minted silver coins from 1964 or earlier, they're 90% silver, which is actually a vast majority precious metal. So that, in my mind, should also be exempt from sales tax. But one thing that really kind of strikes me as odd is if you have a really cool dollar that has maybe like my birthday as the serial number, and I'm like, hey, I'll give you $1 for that dollar, you would have to charge me sales tax to purchase that dollar from you. It's very interesting how the definition of the difference between an exchange or a sale, something weird doesn't work there. We shouldn't be taxing currency. We shouldn't be taxing something that is legal tender just because of the fact that it makes absolutely no sense for me to give you $1 and you have to give me $1.07 and then I have to send 7 pennies to the state in the form of sales tax. So in that concept itself, it doesn't make sense. But on another aspect of it, you know, when you exempt something from sales tax, you're encouraging people to buy that thing. Now, if you were to exempt TVs from sales tax, I don't think you're going to see a plethora of people buying TVs. But when you're talking about an investment opportunity like coins, currency, you will, in fact, encourage people to buy more. That's how it works. If you reduce sales tax, if I don't have to pay 7% almost, or 8%, and in some cities 9% sales tax on an investment, that means that I can spend 7, 8, 9% more of my money on that, which then increases the profits that the business is obtaining, which they pay sales tax, or they pay income tax, they pay their employees, those employees pay income tax. We're spurning and we're actually kind of churning this investment in an industry, and we're not asking to exempt the coin book holders or the cute little plastic things that you like to put your coins in. That's all still subject to sales tax. It's the item that is in fact the investment that I'm asking that we exempt from sales tax. Now, no matter what, the tax man's going to get his money. So if you're the person who says, well, this is just a hobby, this isn't an investment, well, I would challenge you by saying your great-grandpa or grandma who's got this massive coin collection, they pass away, unfortunately, and then they hand that down to their kids, and then their kids say, well, I don't like coins, and I'd really like this money. Well, those kids go and sell that coin collection. Guess what? They pay capital gains on that. There's estate money that's involved in the transferring of large coin collections. So no matter what, no matter which way you shake this, if you buy a coin and it inflates in value and you sell it, you pay capital gains. If you inherit a coin collection that you sell, you pay the tax on it. There's no way around not paying the tax on this. And so it doesn't make sense that we should pay sales tax for something that we're going to have to pay taxes on anyways. The tax man can have his money, but maybe shouldn't get it twice or 3 times in some instances. So I think that what we should be doing as a state is we should be looking at opportunities to encourage people to invest in our state. You could have, if we exempt coins from sales tax, then there might be more coin shows, which then people travel to our state and they buy hotel rooms and they pay that hotel tax, or they get a rental car here, they fly in here. That's what we should be looking at, encouraging investment. And yes, this is a very small thing, $2.4 million. I'm not saying that this is going to be like earth-shattering and we're going to rectify the budget with Social Security tax exemption by encouraging investment in coins. I'm not saying that. But we should be looking and driving towards that. So I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. I don't want to blow up the budget resolution, and I don't want to waste time reading off an oral amendment after you call this out of order and that kind of stuff. So I will just leave it at that. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you, Representative Olson. So just to be clear, you are withdrawing the House File 106 amendment. All right. House File 106 amendment is withdrawn. Members, we're going to move now to general discussion. Keep in mind, we do have to be to the floor by 11:30. So at 11:25, we're going to stop to do the final vote. But until then, we do have time for some member discussion. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is for Chair Gomez or maybe for staff. Do the changes in the amendment today make any changes to the spreadsheet regarding the worldwide reporting stuff?
Ms. Templin.
Mr. Chair, Representative Robbins, the changes in the A13 amendment today are technical changes that do not have any or should not have any impact to the fiscal impact of worldwide combined reporting that would affect the spreadsheet.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Chair Gomez, I appreciate your work and being on this committee. It's fun to be back on it after a couple-year hiatus. But just kind of looking at the headlines from when the bill was released and in the short order, our side didn't really get a chance to hardly look at the bill overall. But I think it's important that Minnesotans, the headlines for both two of the major papers were tax cuts and rebates. But really, when we had the discussion, you can't look at everything just in a small vacuum. We got to look at the global budget that's being proposed, and you have some tax relief in here, but it's very, very targeted. The average Minnesotan is going to be asked to pay more taxes and a variety of fees, an increase in taxes. And so overall, we're looking at a $10 billion tax increase in revenue raising in our state budget, that the average Minnesotan is going to have to pay more and being asked to pay more in a time where we have record inflation, but we also have record surplus. And so I appreciate the efforts of this committee. I wish we could do more for the average Minnesotan and more Minnesotans. We failed, as we had the discussion here, to deliver on a promise to eliminate the tax on Social Security income. We failed to provide meaningful surplus return to taxpayers. $275 just doesn't get you very far, but Minnesotans paid well over $18 billion if you add back the inflation measure, and the reserves that we have. The state of Minnesota has a lot of, is flush with money. We had the discussion last week that we don't have a revenue problem in this state. The revenues keep increasing and coming to the state of Minnesota. But what we have with the Democrat majority is a spending problem. We have new programs, new aids, even just in this bill, but more broadly. We had the 40% increase in the state government bill yesterday. We had nearly $4 billion in taxes in the transportation bill and fees. We'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. And Minnesotans are just getting run over. Where they were optimistic that they would receive some of the surplus, the historic surplus, and this bill falls far, far short of that. And in fact, overall, we're raising taxes by $10 billion in the state on the backs of Minnesota families, Minnesota businesses, in a time of economic uncertainty and high inflation. And we're not helping Minnesotans overall, and it's the outlook is uncertain. And so we missed the mark here. I enjoyed being on the committee. I enjoy you personally. But we certainly have very different ideas on fiscal policy. But Minnesotans should know there isn't very much in tax cuts overall. It's a $10 billion tax increase that Democrats are imposing on the state of Minnesota.
Further discussion, members. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate getting to ask that question. I just had a couple closing comments as well. First of all, Chair Gomez, it really is a great committee, and I appreciate your leadership. I appreciate the robust discussions that you permit in here, because I really think it benefits the state when we can really wrestle through things as a body. So thank you for that. It's very valuable. I have to say I'm disappointed, like Representative Koznick. We are making our state more uncompetitive. And I know I talk about this all the time, but adding a fifth income tax tier is, especially when we have a huge surplus, is really going to harm our state. We already had the fifth highest income tax rates in the country. And we already had the fourth highest corporate, or first highest corporate rate, or second now, given the changes our surrounding states have made, fourth highest capital gains rate. And because we tax capital gains at the same rate as regular income in Minnesota, we will now have the second or third highest capital gains rate. We still tax Social Security, as we've talked about. On every measure, members, our state tax code is not competitive. And it already achieves the chair's, stated goal of being progressive. We have one of the most progressive tax codes in the country already. And the more we raise all these taxes, it's making it harder for Minnesota to be a place that will attract investment and attract talent. And that's what we really need, members. We are a state of 6 million people that is losing population on a net basis every year. And this year we were top 10 for net outmigration. And we have got to figure out a way for our long-term economic growth to attract investment that will create jobs, drive innovation, attract talent. And that economic growth is what will drive the ability to invest in the things we all care about, like education and public safety and helping people. If we are not growing as an economy, we cannot have, you can raise taxes all day long, but if the economy isn't growing, we will not have the revenue to support the investments that you guys want. So I just am making a plea for thinking about tax policy in a way that will drive investment, drive talent to our state. And I think the data in economic literature is pretty clear that there is a tipping point, right? And I think we've fallen over that cliff. So I urge people to take a broader look at what drives economic growth and how we can use tax policy for that goal that we can then use to drive investment in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Robbins. To Chair Gomez, final remarks.
All right. I don't have like a bunch of final remarks. We're going to continue talking about this bill moving forward. So, and we are meeting one more time tomorrow. So this isn't goodbye yet. And so I'll have some more to say to everybody tomorrow, I think. But I appreciate that, Representative Robbins. And I think that like I'll just say, like, my CA comes from another committee, and he's like, well, you have to make them just talk about the tax provisions in the bill. And I'm like, oh, no, this is tax committee. Like, we kind of allow a little bit of a free-ranging discussion. And to your point, I think that it's good because it means that it gives us a chance to really dig in, to these big issues. And, I think that we've done that, and we've done it really respectfully. And I just really appreciate everybody for kind of, keeping our good vibes going. Unfortunately, Representative Davids isn't here because I was going to say some nice things about him. Don't tell him that I said that. Yeah, but we've worked really hard on this bill. We have what I believe is a balanced approach. We do send some direct help out to the people who need it the most in this bill. We do cut Social Security taxes for those who need it the most. And, kind of as I have been talking about, taking a measured approach to some of these things allows the other pieces of the bill to work. And so I'm really proud. I'm really proud of this bill. I'm proud particularly of the governor's commitment to families and children, and that we have a measure, a child and working family tax credit in this bill that will cut child poverty by almost 23%. I think that that's something that we can all be really proud of. And, and we have all of Chair Lagarde's division report in this bill, which was the result of a lot of really great work by people on both sides of the aisle. And I look forward to bringing it forward on the floor, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot more discussion. Thank you very much.
And with that, Chair Gomez moves that House File 1938, as amended, be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. And the chair also moves for staff to make any technical adjustments necessary to the bill language and to the spreadsheet to reflect the intent of this committee.
Mr. Chair, can we get a roll call?
Roll call has been requested. Roll call will be taken. It was Representative Swedzinski requested the roll call. Ms. Sabas will take the roll.
Chair Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Chair Gomez, aye. Vice Chair Norris.
Aye.
Vice Chair Norris, aye. Lead Davids, excused. Representative Agbaje.
Aye.
Representative Agbaje, aye. Representative Anderson.
No.
Representative Anderson, no. Representative Brand.
Aye.
Representative Brand, aye. Representative Elkins.
Aye.
Representative Elkins, aye. Representative Howard.
Aye.
Representative Howard, aye. Representative Joy.
No.
Representative Joy, no. Representative Koznick. Representative Koznick, no. Representative Lee.
Aye.
Representative Lee, aye. Representative List-Lagarde.
Aye.
Representative List-Lagarde, aye. Representative Olson, B.
No.
Representative Olson, B, no. Representative Olson, L.
Aye.
Representative Olson, L, aye. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Representative Pinto, aye. Representative Robbins.
No.
Representative Robbins, no. Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Smith, aye. Representative Swedzinski.
No.
Representative Swedzinski, no. Representative Weiner.
No.
Representative Weiner, no. Representative Whitty.
No.
Representative Whitty, no. Representative Youakim.
Aye.
Representative Youakim, aye. Mr. Chair, there are 12 ayes, 8 nays, and 1 member excused.
There being 12 ayes and 8 nays, House File 1938 as amended is re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee, and staff are authorized to make any technical adjustments necessary to the bill language and to the spreadsheets to reflect the intent of this taxes committee. All right, members, thank you for the great discussion today and for exploring all kinds of interesting committee procedure with us. Our next meeting will be tomorrow, April 20th. We're going to be meeting at 9 a.m. to have the paid family medical leave bill. We're also going to be hearing the DOR policy and technical bill, which will be a vehicle bill. And with that, tax committee is adjourned.
I pulled Frank.